The Immortal Game, Chapter 22, The End of War, by Aesthetic B. The defying storm raged against the darkening sky, a swirling vortex of dark nimbus and crackling thunder. The closer Rainbow Dash came to it, the more she found herself awed by the sheer size of the thing. It could have swallowed Cloudsdale of ease, and it was tall and dense. Flying through that storm would make more than just skill. No pony, no matter how skilled, could have hoped to control themselves in that monstrosity. It would take a kind of suicidal arrogance. One corner of Rainbow Dash's mouth curled upward into a sidelong grin. Spitfire fell in beside her, and they flew towards the storm at a regular pace, which for them meant they were well ahead of the other teams. "Makes you feel small," Spitfire said over the whistling and roaring of the building wind. "Doesn't it?" Dash scoffed and waved a hoof. "That," she said, jerking her head towards the raging thunderhead. "No way! Makes me think Titan has size issues." Spitfire's laugh was carried away by the rushing wind. "You're real, aren't you?" "Me?" Dash shot back. "What do you mean?" Spitfire shook her head. "Doesn't even occur to you how dangerous this is, does it? You never even considered the possibility we might fall." The sky was lit by a sudden flash of lightning. The compressive boom that hit moments later. "Hey," Dash said, "the princesses are the ones who gotta fight Titan. The way I see it, we've got the easy job. We wouldn't be here if I didn't have a thing for beating the odds." They pumped harder against the turning gale, angling upwards for a bare point of entry. "I like it," Spitfire said. "It's a good attitude to have. Plus," Dash said, "how could we lose when we have the Spitfire on our side? Not to sound creepy or anything, but you're my idol and I worship you. But I'm a huge fan." "Really?" Spitfire asked. "Never got that impression." "Yeah, I play... Wait. Are you being sarcastic?" "Tell you what," Spitfire said. She never finished what she was going to say. A shrill screech grated against Dash's ears, and Spitfire was flown off her flight path as a dark, feathered storm mastered her side. She was gone in half a heartbeat. Dash tried to pull to a stop, but the turbulent winds made a true stop impossible. She twisted around as she was tossed about, desperately trying to spot Spitfire in the dark of the night. She saw nothing. "Spitfire!" There had to be something. They couldn't have hit the ground already. Spitfire was still falling. Somewhere, with whatever that thing had been. Dash whipped her head back and forth as she felt panic begin to sink in. Her Pegasine eyes were strong, but it was just too strong. "Spitfire!" Her shout was stolen by the wind inches from her face. "What?" The sound of confidence called out from behind her. "Did you think I was totally helpless?" Dash spun in midair and fought to keep herself steady. There, back to the storm was Spitfire, and in her hose she held... It took another flash of lightning for Dash to see it clearly. It looked almost like a mare, but covered from its flank to its ears in thick, brown-black feathers. It had two pointing wings, much bigger than a normal Pegasus. But its face was caught Dash's eyes. It caused her to rule it out as most definitely non-pony. His eyes were black slits and yellow orbs, and his muzzle was a twisted grin and sharpened teeth on a set of lips that seemed to be perpetually peeled back over the mouth. "What is that?" Dash shouted. Spitfire nodded her head at a point past Dash. Rainbow Dash spun to see that the rest of the Pegasi had caught up to them. Or at least, the rest of the Pegasi in their group. The Karen Squall group was farther back and preparing a pressure channel. "Harpy!" Spitfire yelled against the wind. It occurred to Dash that any mundane pony wouldn't be able to hear a word she was saying. Pegasi hearing was more useful than she thought it seemed. Spitfire let every pony get a good look at the harpy as it struggled in futility. "You kill him like this!" She wrapped a foreleg around one of its wings, then twisted her body, moving her foreleg and the harpy in one opposition to one another. There was an audible crunch as the hollow bones in the wings shattered. Spitfire let the harpy fall from her grasp. It shrieked and beat its one good wing uselessly as it plummeted to its death. "Not too different from how you do a puppet." "Now get ready!" Spitfire shouted. "More are on the way!" Dash looked to see dozens of indistinct shapes coming towards them from below. Fairly faintly, she could hear their shrill cries. This was bad. They needed to get the storm moving, fast, and the harpies weren't going to let that happen. They couldn't spend all their time fighting. That wasn't why they were there. "Well," Spitfire said from beside Rainbow Dash, "you gonna lead the charge or what?" Dash looked at her. "What, me?" Spitfire smiled. "I'm not the one with the sword. Which I'll sign for you, by the way, provided we survive this. The world about to end, her friends in danger, the fate of an army resting on her team's shoulders, and somehow that was the incentive Dash needed. She tucked her wings close to her body, channeling the turbulent air, dropping for a dive. As soon as she cleared a group of Pegasi, she drew her blade, the seam between her foreleg and length of steel becoming charged with an attractive force. Thunder and lightning! Dash screamed as she fell through the hurricane. For a moment, she thought the winds were too strong. Her team had her, then, wings of steel! Rainbow Dash looked down at the army of harpies beneath her, their wing beats frantic and laborious to keep their ascension through the ranger storm. They really should have picked a better position to attack from, and a better enemy to attack. Dash screamed as the thrill of falling burned through every fiber of her being. But it wasn't just falling. It was the thrill of flying in a thunderstorm, amplified tenfold. It was the thrill of battle, of coming within inches of death, but taking those inches every time. It was the thrill of victory, although that one might have been a little preemptive on her part. Spitfire was right, Dash realized. When she was in the air, her worries seemed so easy to handle. It didn't even occur to Dash that they might lose. And of course they'd win. What's this? Dash thought, her mind on the Pegasi behind her, particularly on Spitfire. The first harpy extended a pair of talons toward her as he dropped through the air to meet it. Just as they would have met their mark, however, Dash tilted a wing and spun about, stabilizing directly behind her enemy. Her blade bisected the harpy just where its neck met its shoulder. The force of Dash's fall behind the super-sharp weapon. Dash felt the very tremors run along the metal as it cleaved through bone, sinew, and skin, and the harpy was split in two. Her momentum was dismissed, but she kept falling face first nonetheless. Another harpy appeared at the edge of her field of vision, and Dash rolled in midair, safely spinning under the blow of talons and skewering it through the abdomen. She threw the dying creature off her blade as the raging winds tossed her about. Dash tried to orient herself as the world spun, but she just got a sense of which way was up. A claw dug into her armor just under her ribs. Her skin screamed at the pain. Instinctively, Dash lashed out with her blade. She was rewarded with a keening shriek. Dash pulled herself away to continue her chaotic fall. Only one way to orient herself now. Dash flared her wings, and the strength of her fall forcibly tore them open to a full extension. She didn't know how much force it would take to stop a Pegasus falling at terminal velocity. Holding her wings fully extended would spread that force over our time. But Dash had no idea how much time. She didn't know how much strain her joints could take. They caught that kind of thing in flight school. Her wings hit a wall of air, but her body just kept going, surging forward, threatening to tear her wings out of their sockets. She angled them, trying to divert some of the airflow, and the pressure eased. Soon Dash came out of her fall in a sweeping arc, angling her momentum back upward. Dash skyrocketed back up into the sky, just as the gore from her first harpy caught up with her. Flecks of blood splattered her face and armor as she looked up into battling armies. The harpies had met the majority of her force head-on, and many a Pegasus and harpy wrestled with each other in free fall. As she ascended to meet the enemy once more, she spared a glance at the cut from one of her ribs. It was shallowed, and Dash reasoned that most of the damage had been absorbed by Twilight spells. Dash gave a silent thank you to the unicorn. She couldn't take her friends into the air with her, but hey, near invincibility was a good way to keep them close. The harpies, for the most part, had their backs to Rainbow Dash. Rainbow Dash, for the most part, had no problem with attacking them from behind. She felled 4 more harpies on her second pass through the aerial battlefield, each of them becoming an unsuspecting spray of blood and viscera to her blade. They were nothing to her. So slow, so fragile, it was like dodging snowflakes, cutting through paper bags. It helped that she had weapons and armor. All they had were feathers and claws. In the ancient times, did every pony go to war with weapons like these? She dove back into the fray, trying her best to pick off the harpies that were tangled up with her ponies. With no blades of their own, Dash reasoned her forces could be hard-pressed to fend off harpy claws. They needed all the help she could get. Dash gave it to them. She sheared a nearby harpy's wings off at the shoulder and let it fall away from a Pegasus with a wounded foreleg. Another harpy fell to simple decapitation, the spray of gore causing Dash to cringe. Up and down Rainbow Dash went, riding the powerful winds of the storm to travel between their foes. She was born to fly. They weren't. That made her superior. So they died, again and again, until there was none of them left. So, Guys, I was thinking of which song to play for you while we're listening to this. What do you all think? Cry Thunder or Eye of the Storm? Jazz hovered in the air, apart. Her hair and armor splattered with blood that made dozens of patterns as it splashed across her body. She looked around at the forces, spotting Spitfire, and noticed how much they had been thinned. She had been fine during the attack, sure, but the Harpies fought fair bar against her unarmored counterparts. Still, she was at a rallying point, and they had a job to do. Right! Dash shouted. Let's get this storm moving! Dash was cut short. A song started to play. Dash realized he had never heard music before. Not real music, not like this. Penetrated the howling winds and crack of thunder, ingraining herself in her mind like a sliver. It was so soft and cold and ethereal. It was nothing like Dash had ever heard before. She knew if she stopped hearing it, she'd never hear it again. She didn't want it to happen. The singer was singing for her. It wanted her. She wanted to find it. Whatever muse was singing her name. But it was fading. Yes, Dash was certain of it. The music was fading, but it was coming from high above them. From the storm. Without hesitating, Dash headed off towards the source of the noise, knowing with irritation that the others had done the same. They couldn't see the music was for her. It practically called her name. With its jilting noises and eerie wails, she pushed her wings further. Spitfire passed her. Dash growled in frustration. The singer was hers, and nobody else's. She pushed harder, picking up speed. She needed to get there first. Needed to find that singer in the raging storm. Dash tucked herself into Spitfire's windstream and caught up with the other mare easily. She broke free, popping her wings furiously. Looked ahead at the churning wall of dark gray clouds to see, there, the most beautiful mare Dash had ever laid eyes on, floating freely just inside the fringe of the storm. She was a white pony, eyes blue like the sky, or sea or something. She had no hair, but skin like porcelain. Her mane floated around her in strands of energy drifting like seaweed, ignorant of the gale-force winds. Her lips parted sensuously. From them poured a song, beckoning Rainbow Dash forward. So Rainbow Dash went, surging past Spitfire in a burst of speed she didn't know herself capable of. She entered the obscuring clouds of the storm, folding her wings to keep them from catching the wind, and letting her incredible momentum carry her forward. She saw the beautiful pony's eyes swaying in shock. Clearly, she hadn't expected to move so fast, to prove herself so superior. Dash sheared the creature's head off. She stared, dumbfounded, as the blade shattered the pony's glassy neck. Shards of white were separated away from the storm. She hadn't intended to kill it. She just wanted to go to it, be with it. To be lured to certain death, Dash realized. The creature had used its song to lure them into a deadly storm. Dash killed it. How? Wrong. That was how. How many times has she fought against herself without her own knowledge? How many times that a part of her hidden away was a tiny voice, a slim shred of rebellion, a drop of equanimity in a sea of madness. She intended to kill the monster the moment she first heard it. Dash felt hooves on her shoulders and realized she was being pulled out of the storm. Probably been a bad idea to hover inside of it, she realized as she was thrown into open air. Are you alright? Spitfire shouted over the sound of the storm. Dash nodded dumbly. Spitfire grabbed Dash's head in her hooves and turned Dash to look in her eyes. She seemed pleased with what she had found and let Dash go. That was one of the sirens, she said. Adagio. Mother! Resisting your song is supposed to be impossible. Not even unicorn magic will help. Yeah, well, Dash said. I got lots of practice. She turned to the army. Listen up! They pulled her closer, forming a tight semicircle of flyers. Stick with the plan, Dash shouted. Create a low-pressure zone while Spitfire and I head inside and give this big boy a push. Remember, we're aiming for the mountain. She gestured to the mountain that housed Canterlot. Now go! They went. Dash turned inward towards the megastorm. She sighed, though the sound was lost in the winds. I used to be a weather pony. Spitfire barked out a laugh. And I used to be the undisputed coolest Pegasus alive. Tell you what, Rainbow Dash. We survived this, and you sign my goggles. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh! You're still signing that sword. You bet, Spitfire said. She blew out a breath between her cheeks. This has got to be the craziest and most dangerous thing I've ever done in my life. Dash looked at her in a raging storm. You think that's fast? She said at last, rolling her shoulders. One time, I punched Titan in the face. The fury of the storm was nothing compared to that of the gods. The tempest's center was a churning gray cloudscape, lit to brilliance by Celestia's seething blade. Each part of the storm, each swirling strand of cloud, was three things to Luna: elemental power to be tapped, a surface to stand on, and cover. They had long since left the tranquil surface of the tempest behind and descended into its heart. It was moving now, sweeping its way over the forest and towards Canterlot. The beam of light that had pierced the clouds was gone. The only thing at the eye of the storm was Titan. Luna and Celestia had to think faster than he did, because he moved faster. They had to strike truer, because he could strike harder. And he had to stay together, because apart he could destroy them in a minute apiece. All things considered, they were doing an admirable job. Tightening left flank, tensing right foreleg. Celestia's thoughts were not focalized in her mind. Rather, they made Luna note that Titan almost did instantly. It was perfect communication. He's about to round on you, blade high. They stood on a scrap of storm of cloud as it spun about the center of the maelstrom. Each of them indifferent to the gale force winds. Titan was once again between his daughters, whirling between them and striking with all the force of the asteroid impact. Celestia's call was right. Titan wheeled on Luna in the split second it took her to register the thought. She found that she had already ducked under half a singularity and thrust the deer into his chest. Her blade sank only inches into Titan's flesh, but his war plate rusted and corroded around it. Titan pulled himself away and struck out again. Luna's struck had only been a drop in the bucket, but it was enough. They kept fighting like this, kept being careful their father would weaken and die. They knew it was possible. They had seen it happen to him before, when he fought Terra. Luna felt Celestia's mind run through each of Titan's actions, taking in changes in his stance and expression so small and minute that he wouldn't have noticed them at all. Celestia had always been one to overthink things. Luna had not. It was exactly her nature to rely on instinct. This was why she was so quick in reacting to Celestia's observations. Between the two of them, they eliminated their greatest weaknesses. Titan caught their blades and threw himself back into another cloud, pulling them with a wave of concussed air. "Terra," he said, his alcorn voice piercing the howling winds with ease. She had control of only one aspect, delivering your design. Lightning illuminated the depths of the megastorm, flashing forward to strike Titan's blades and then tear its way towards Luna and Celestia. They were gone from their tiny cloud before it turned to steam with a hiss. She betrayed me, Titan said. Much of her design is in you, Luna, but altered with aspects that we... Titan paused and glanced downward, as though his eyes could pierce the clouds beneath him to see the Everfree below. Distilled from ponykind. This was planned, and you became her primary child. But you, Celestia. In an instant he spoke. The light flickered through the storm around him, a tiny glitter on every particle of condensed water, every silvery white droplet touched by Luna's magic. The light built over the course of one of Luna's pounding heartbeats. It broke free from the clouds, converged on Titan. It wrapped around his legs, clung to his armor, and coated him in frost. Titan looked down at the warplate as it was eaten by Luna's spell. It was working its way up to his neck. His mouth made a twisted line of disgust. Celestia, on a cloud across from Luna, let loose a barrage of sunfire. Steam filled the air between her and the king, clouds unable to withstand the temperature of the focused inferno. Titan conjured a barrier. Solid black hemisphere, unlike anything Luna had ever seen, and it swallowed Celestia's most powerful spell of ease. Titan intended to cast a direct hit. Celestia intended to call his bluff. She grimaced, bearing down a zenith as her horn flared, and sunfire continued to pour forth into Titan's strange barrier. Finally, he grunted in displeasure. Titan took to the air, sending out a wave of concussive force along with a double crack of breaking sound barrier. Clouds around him scattered. Luna and Celestia were thrown even farther apart. Luna allowed herself a small smile as she threw herself over to Celestia's cloud. Titan was strong. Titan was an incline. Titan knew spells he had never seen, and had the power to wipe entire species from the face of the planet. Titan could die. They just proved it to him. Luna and Celestia turned their sky skyward. Maybe I actually win, Luna thought. Wouldn't that be something? Celestia thought back. What do you think he was getting at with Terra and children? I suspect we're about to find out. He likes the sound of his own voice. Luna watched as the darkscape of her father, descending back through the hole he had made in the storm. Of course he does. He's the only pony he has to talk to. Titan struck the cloud beneath them, like a Pyrrhian hammer ringing against an anvil. It burst into tiny droplets that were thrown away by the ripple of his impact. He hovered aloft, armor perfect once more. You, Celestia. His voice reverberated through the storm, as daring to try and drown him out. You were supposed to be a son, a second Empyrean. Instead, Terra tried to make you like her mother. Is that why you always hated me? Celestia's voice matched Titan's. Is that why you hurt me, broke me, taught me to never feel? The sky cracked as Celestia cast an angry orange thunderbolt at her father. Titan let a rebound off his chest plate and break the swirling clouds. Then they were upon him again, blades performing the dance of war as they struggled to win the game of gods. Their blades bucked and fizzed underneath the power of Titan's weapons, but he didn't relent. They fought perfectly together, pinning their father between them and traveling under the gale of blows. If any of you are right now playing Duel of the Fates, it's okay, so am I. I taught you to roll! Titan shouted above the din. I taught you to be strong. I gave you the mind of a god despite your inherent flaws. Luna! Titan's hind leg came from nowhere. Dancing between Singularity and a deer pulled her in the chest. How many times her near indestructible bones broke from the impact, Luna couldn't have said. She staggered backward, blocking her body to healing herself. The other half of Singularity swung around and stabbed Luna in the chest. Luna saw past Titan to Celestia, was busy tearing herself free from 100 of tiny black cords of slimy magical energy. She was, for the moment, alone. Air bunched itself around her as Luna called her Pegasus magic, beat her wings, bringing herself off of Titan's blade and into the storm. Simultaneously, she sent a blast of telekinesis at her sister to bring her out of Titan's reach, at least momentarily. Titan could only go after one of them. He chose Luna, easily overtaking her with a beat of his own wings and trapping her under a tempest of blows. Nadir worked to stem the flurry of hits, guided by Luna's frantic mind. In the distance, lightning split the sky once more, and black lightning her father's powerful frame as he bore down upon her. But each of you, Titan said, voice in avalanche. Each of you succumbed to the corruption of ponykind. Each of you chose to give in to what is easy, rather than become masters of reality. Both halves of Singularity struck downward and rang against Nadir. Luna pulled herself away before her blade could be extinguished. Celestia landed beside her, free of Titan's bonds. The wind and the storm tore at their manes. Are you so lost, Titan? Luna shouted. How could you possibly think that any pony would want to be like you? For all your power, you are alone and useless. This world thrives without you. Of course, it thrived without her, too. Titan tilted his head. You think I am lost? Don't you understand, Luna? Thunder broke against Celestia's skin, and Luna found herself facing an oncoming swarm of shattered Singularity fragments. She split Nadir, but she didn't have nearly as much focus as her father. Blade motes met midair, exploding into thousands of aurorae, but too many black shards of Singularity made it through. They shattered Luna's barrier, forced their way past her moment field, and sunk into her flesh. She went numb when they touched her. Then, Singularity formed before her in two parts, and Titan was there, standing between them and the depths of the storm. His blade ranged against theirs, taking ground and giving nothing in return. My purpose is the ultimate purpose, he bellowed as he thought. I am the universal imperative. I will never ignore my true calling. Luna tried to move in tandem with Celestia, but a defense against even half of Titan's assault would be unattainable. It was taking all of her focus just to stay in the fight. I alone understand how this world is meant to function. You're a cruel monster! Celestia screamed. You were a cruel monster 1,000 years ago, and you're a cruel monster now! I see it, Luna sees it, all of ponykind sees it, Terra sees it, Harmony saw it, Titan! A clap of thunder, a wave of force, a collision of blades. Celestia and Luna were thrown away from the king as the cloud clave away. Harmony, Titan whispered, looking down into the depths of the storm. Terra told you. Luna took the air and hovered apart from Titan. Celestia took her place alongside her. We know everything, Titan, Luna said. No, Titan said, slowly raised his head to look at them. No, you do not know everything, my daughters. You call me cruel, but you cannot know cruelty. Cruelty is taking away everything a pony has worked to create. Cruelty is mocking their ideas as you kill those who are loyal to them. Empty sky, Celestia whispered. Lightning flashed between them and the king, bringing them into a colorless day for only a moment. I will show you cruelty, daughters. I will take everything you have worked to build. They will take you from each other. Ice filled Luna's veins as Titan looked out, and through the storm towards what he knew to be the army of ponykind. I will kill your little ponies. You will arrive too late, helpless. With that, Titan broke the sound barrier from a standstill, tearing another hole in the storm. Luna and Celestia said nothing. They followed him, pumping their wings as hard and fast as they could, terrifying the knowledge that Titan was right. He was faster than they were. He was going to get there first. Rarity, like many other mares, had always admired knights. After all, what lady didn't want a handsome stallion to slay the dragon and spirit them away? A brave, strong, definitely handsome pony to keep them safe from harm. Knights protected the weak. They fought for what was just and true. They knew that ponies could fall, but the ideals they fought for lived forever. Ponies like Sonoramnus, the dragon slayer. Her father had not been a knight when she was growing up. Was left her free to fantasize about meeting a real father, a hero, who could come and vanquish the wicked and Steve and take her sister away. None had come. After her mother died, they were taken away from esteem and given to a foster family. No great savior come for Rarity. No shining knight, no stalwart protector. One night she looked from Sleebell's sleeping form, barely on the cusp of being able to speak, to her foster father, who knew nothing past running his simple rants. And the seeds died that if the time ever came, Sleebell would have her hero. So while she lived and laughed with friends and family, working to perfect her art as a designer, she had also fulfilled a sacred quest, a knight's quest. Rarity had been intimately familiar with every one of Carsomir's 14 blade shards. She knew the design. It took her almost a year to perfect the diamonds, then cut them to a deadly edge. Her blade was not identical to her father's. She redesigned the bridge and 2 blade shards for elegance. It took her 2 more years to become skilled enough to class the 14-shard blade. Ponies at school had saw disdain and awe towards her freakish level of control when it came to telekinesis. Rarity loved her attention. Rarity kept her weapon hidden. She kept it secret. She kept it to feel safe, above all things. She kept it. That was the only thing she owned. The only thing generosity had left to give. A dragon, Rarity, is perhaps the most powerful creature in the world, excepting ponies. Rarity patted her father. Why do I need to know how to kill a dragon? I don't want to! As Steve raised a hoof, Rarity knew it was time to be silent. Because, her father said, just as I said, a dragon is the very creature you have the least likelihood of being able to kill. Then why? A dragon has 2 methods of drawing in breath. One is for air, the other is for fire. One sounds like breathing. The other sounds distinct, like the rust of a steam engine. The dragon before her was easily twice as large as the Carousel Boutique, and covered in dark green scales. It glared at Rarity, Applejack, and Pinkie Pie with an intelligence far surpassing that of a simple brute, as it claws tore furrows and deep into the ground. With a sound very much like the rust of a steam engine, it opened its mouth to suck in air. Oh dear! Fire! Rarity shouted. It was unnecessary. Pinkie Pie and Applejack could practically read her thoughts anyway. They were moving before she was. Rarity ran with Applejack, as always. Ding! A Rarityjack ship? Here? They took left. Pinkie took right, flanking their opponent as it drew in fire. When they were level with where its wings met its shoulders, it exhaled. The world was set aflame with emerald. It billowed and curled from the dragon's maw in a roaring inferno, turning a small amount of foliage into ash, setting several of the sparsely placed ancient trees alight. It swiveled its head towards Rarity and Applejack. More of the ground vanished in fire. The army hadn't dared come close to the dragon, and none of them were struck by flames. Smart ponies. Rarity's hooves pounded against the damp earth as she ran from the fire. How was he supposed to even get close to that thing? Heat built around her, the temperature rising to almost unbearable levels. Then nothing. The dragon had run out of flame. Applejack had possessed the same sense to count 6 seconds from start to finish. It didn't matter if Rarity couldn't get close, she realized. She didn't need to. Vorpal burst into 14 chakras and whipped through the air, a glimmering storm of weaponized magic. The dragon wailed as the diamonds tore through his membranous green wing, then wheeled on Rarity and stepped forward. Applejack was already rushing to meet it. She pivoted as the creature's head came around, and her hind legs shot out in a kick, aimed for the dragon's throat. Its eyes flashed with rage. It opened its massive maw so that Applejack's hooves met thin air. With speed that defied its massive size, the dragon's head darted forward, jaws closing around Applejack with a sickening grunts. Rarity was fakely aware of Pinkie Pie backflipping over a tail swipe as he loaded explosives into her four-leg launcher. As he reassembled Vorpal at her blade. If that dragon swallowed Applejack whole, Rarity would happily cut its stomach to get her out. Applejack didn't intend to go down easily, however. No sooner had the dragon's teeth clenched shut than they were pried back open. She held herself down, hind legs pressing against the roof of the creature's mouth, her back to the bottom, her face strangely resistant, but she managed to get out and look at Rarity. "Get it!" Applejack shouted. "Run the caser!" Rarity held Vorpal before her, parallel to the ground, found the exact trajectory each of its jars would have to take. Applejack needed to get out of its mouth, and the instant she did, Rarity would have a clear shot. It wasn't as Rarity could shoot through Applejack's armor, not with Twilight's enchantments, and even if she could. Applejack twisted, giving her the barest room for an opening. She focused on her target. Rarity became aware of a sound she hadn't noticed before, like a rush of steam from a train engine. In an instant, Rarity was sure of two things. First, that the dragon's flame was undoubtedly very hot. She knew that a dragon's fire was magical in nature, became more powerful of age. The unbearable heat she felt washed over her earlier, despite her blade casting Rose's protective enchantments and distance from the flame, attested to that. This wasn't Pinkie Pie's chemical incendiary, or rare terrorist surgically applying pain fire. This was all the intensity of the fire that had reduced the nearby foliage to ash, but focused through a tunnel as wide as a pony. A funnel that Applejack just happened to be in the middle of. Applejack could die. They both knew how close she had come during the second battle of Ponyville. Now eventually she just stopped healing, and dragonfire might be what it'd take to kill her. The second thing came with the recollection of the scream Applejack made under Terra's flame. Deaf or no, clear a path of attack or none, Rarity never wanted to hear that sound again. She aimed downward at the thinner scales guarding the dragon's throat, and shattered her blade. As expected, the dragon saw shards coming this time, and knew the damage they could cause. It ducked its head, Applejack still held its mouth, or holding its mouth open, depending on how one chose to view the situation. Diamond blade shards sparked against the dragon's crest, bouncing harmlessly off of several hundred years of hardened scales. At the same time, Applejack rolled herself out of the dragon's mouth and landed on a scorched her in a heap. The dragon stopped inhaling, head held low. Rarity's breath caught in her throat. Applejack scrabbled her hooves and plunged under the dragon's belly, just as the blinding channel of green fire glassed the ground she laid on. Rarity watched the mare struggle beneath the creature and out of the range of its flames, counting 6 seconds as she readied her blade. Something collided with Rarity's side, found herself pinned to the ground by a heavy form. She drew her hooves out to protect her face on instinct, was rewarded with the sputtering feel of a timber wolf's muzzle against her hooves. It was the other monsters. They were coming to the dragon's aid. The timber wolf bore down on her, sap dripping from its teeth to drizzle across her face, and let out a throaty snarl. 2 gleaming shafts made of 7 diamonds took their place on either side of its neck. They twisted its head off with an explosion of wood and splinters. Rarity threw herself to her hooves, and dusted off as she rejoined the blade. 6 seconds of fire ended as she did so, and Rarity was almost thrown to the ground again by the force of Pinkie Pie's explosive detonating against the dragon's side. It was a poor shot. She felt to hit the area where Bing met flesh, but it still did damage. The dragon roared, seeming to forget about Applejack, and rounded on Pinkie Pie. It opened its mouth, and that dreadfully familiar sound filled Rarity's ears again. By now it seemed to drown out almost every other noise in the forest, despite not being very loud in and of itself. It beat its wings, buffeting Pinkie Pie with a wave of air, rearing up on its own hind legs. Rarity watched the dragon, reassembling Vorpal as she searched for a weak point. There had to be somewhere she could strike. Pinkie Pie was thrown to the ground, and as the dragon came down, slammed a claw into her. Dirt exploded outward as Pinkie Pie was pinned to the ground by razor claws. She struggled to try to wiggle her way free. There, just above the apex of the crest, the dragon had appeared what to be a soft spot. A lighter patch of green. If she had perfect aim, she could throw her blade hard enough. Rarity might be able to hit its brain. It beat, trying to aim into its mouth. Too late. Rarity realized she was too absorbed in analyzing the creature. And as a result, she overlooked 2 important facts. First, the dragon had Pinkie Pie pinned to the ground, was about to unleash a torrent of fire. There was no question with Pinkie Pie. She simply wouldn't absorb the inferno. Rarity needed to hit its head, or claws, or something to save her friend. Second, she'd forgotten about its tail. It hit her square in the side. Rarity lost all semblance of orientation as her hooves lifted ground. She was vaguely aware of a second impact on her other side, before falling to the ground in a heap. Her ears rang and pain stabbed through her sides. Mouth tasted odd, almost metallic. Rarity's friends were still in mortal danger. She needed to come to her senses and get up. She needed to help them somehow. A tree entered her field of vision. Or maybe it had been there all along. Yes, Rarity thought. That was what she struck in while in the air. She rolled her head to one side, trying to get a view of the dragon. For the next several seconds, Rarity watched. She saw timber wolves and snakes and all of other Titan's monsters coming toward her to get a quick kill. Past them, the dragon still had Pinkie Pie pinned to the ground. Fire poured out of its maws and a seething green blossom of heat and death. But it never reached Pinkie Pie. Gripping the dragon by the lower jaw and pulling its head towards the ground was Applejack. Screaming as the flames flew like liquid over her legs and standing in a pool of molten glass. It wasn't a scream Rarity never wanted to hear again. Not a despairing wail of suffering and pain. It was defiance and rage. Endurance and tenacity. Rarity watched Applejack save Pinkie Pie's life. As she tapped her harmonic connection, letting each of Applejack's intangible virtues flow into her being. Rarity had always been somewhat defenseless. Applejack was nearly invincible, but even Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie could evade any attack. Rarity only had the blade, which was more often than not too busy on offense to be put on defense. She always needed Applejack to protect her, but such was the nature of blade casting. Strike hard, strike fast, strike first. It was one of the first things her father taught her. Blade casting was the most efficient form of killing there was. Even the gods relied on the weapons to kill their enemies. Rarity flew herself to her hooves, ignoring almost the crippling pain that sliced her sides. A timber wolf pounced, aiming to hit her before she regained her balance. But even as she came to her hooves, Rarity sent a single diamond through its mouth to burst out the back of its head. She rolled under the corpse, and every beast between her and the dragon turned to fight a knight commander of the Nor Otter Nitarna. A snake was sheared lengthwise in two as she tried to strike. Another timber wolf took a diamond through the eye. Rarity spun through them like a shower of blood and splinters, never losing her place. 6 of the diamonds of flames ended, and a dragon snatched Applejack on his jaws once more. He shook his head once, not bothering to draw in breath for a fire, then pitched Applejack into a nearby tree. Bark and wood shattered as Applejack fell to the ground. 4 more diamonds rained down on the ground above the devastated ghost-like wolf. Rarity sent 3 more to new targets. He used the 4th for leverage, springing off it and over the swipe of a nearby manticore. She landed, facing forward, just as the manticore's other paw was torn away with a wet splash. It pitched forward as its throat followed. By then, Rarity moved on to other targets. Her health was perfect, her form divine. She split her focus between each of her assailants, delegating the proper amount of diamonds to each, even as she moved through their ranks. She killed them. Every one. It was all in the execution. Until at last, not a single foe stood in her path as she faced the dragon itself. Or rather, its tail. The dragon looked down at Pinkie Pie. It raised his other claw. 4 deadly talons gleamed. 4 fragments of vorpal gleamed a little bit more. Rarity reached the dragon's tail, just as her blade reached its outstretched claw. She slipped onto the sinuous limb as each talon was sheared away to tumble off into the night. The dragon shrieked, rearing its head back and whipping its tail up. Rarity let go. She was flying, soaring through the night air with her blood-stained robe floating about her. Her blade had gone past the dragon's main claw. She called it now, drawing each of the pieces toward her. Her aim was true. Rarity landed against the base of the dragon's head, just as vorpal ascended before her. She braced her impact. Muscles built over months of training, it wrapped her hind legs around its neck. The dragon reared its head, trying to throw herself off. Rarity decided it wasn't green. A soldier, or maybe even a knight, might call the dragon green. But Rarity was, above all things, a designer. And her sense of color simply could not abide calling this evil monster green, even when it was so obviously such a becoming shade of Viridian. Her mane flew back in springing coils, robe floated around her. A vorpal gleamed as he thrust a small patch of white scales just above the dragon's crest. She screamed, because that seemed like the appropriate thing to do when slaying a dragon. She felt her blade slide into the dragon's brain. It split into 14 fragments and tore inside the dragon's skull into mush. Rarity rolled the beast to the ground, feeling the thud of its impact reverberate through her body. She tapped her harmonic connection to make sure that Applejack and Pinkie Pie were both okay. They clambered to her hooves and stepped out of the dragon's dead head. Pinkie Pie had been right. Once more, the beasts of Everfree were retreating, soaring back to their king's citadel. The gathered army gathered around the fallen dragon and looked up to Rarity. Rarity looked about, capping Applejack in the eye. Applejack gave a sort of go-on expression, jerking her head to the rest of the army. "Dragon Slayer!" a pony shouted. Rarity the Dragon Slayer. She'd have a hard time explaining that one to Spike. Rarity thrust her blade into the air. It was met a chorus of cheers from the army. She let them wash over her, feeling curiously distant from the thrill of battle. She was a fashion designer to the heart. She just so happened to slay the dragon. She charged at level 4 battle at the citadel. The army charged with a new chant of ponies make war. Rarity hopped down and joined Applejack, who had freed Pinkie Pie from under the dragon claw. Applejack adjusted her charged Stetson. "Didn't know you had that, well, light in your wares." "Yeah," Pinkie said, springing to her hose despite her injuries. "You were like all twirling and spinning until you jumped on the ceiling, and I thought—" "You were there, Pinkie Pie," Applejack said. "Yes," Rarity said. "Well, the dragon was really nothing." She winced at the pain stabbing her side. "Title's all important." They tried off to join the army in the woods. The citadel loomed before them. White light skied upon its edges and curved, pointed cliffs. It seemed larger than it had before. Closer, the trees began to thin, but the army met no resistance. Where had the creatures gone? "Oh," Rarity realized as he looked ahead. They were probably taking shelter from the storm. It finally touched down. Rarity heard shouting coming from some of the ponies in the army. It was a wall of wind and water that stretched hundreds of feet into the sky. It was little more than a fine mist, torn away sidelong through the air, streaming off the ancient trees to form arcs and patterns. Every branch and leaf on the ground was swept away, leaving only the packed soil behind. And it was coming, approaching them at a frightening speed. Pinkie Pie shot a harpoon in a tree, wrapping the trailing corner around her chest. Applejack shoved Rarity to the ground and pinned her. So Rarity could do to keep her face out of the dirt. "Stay down!" Applejack shouted. Rarity looked up at the mare, then shifted so she was on her back. Applejack looked down at her, their faces inches apart. "I said, stay down, Rarity!" Rarity wriggled some more and freed her forelegs. "Consort, Rarity, what are you doing?" "You're hot!" Rarity said, clapping her hose on the Stetson. "This thing is practically invincible. I'm not wanting it to survive all that just to see it blow away now!" Applejack sighed and rolled her eyes. She didn't object any further. "Just hang on!" The storm hit. The tiny mist-like droplets of water hit Rarity's face, and they stung, so much that she shut her eyes. She felt the press of wind against her, as he clung to Applejack's forelegs and clamped her hooves down more tightly on the hat. Applejack said something, but Rarity couldn't hear it. The howling of the storm filled her ears, as he pressed them against the back of her head. Applejack's face was so close to hers, Rarity could feel it. The Pegasus had failed. The storm had hit, which meant they lost. The fact finally dawned on Rarity. What were the other members of the army, who didn't have a servant-dance earth pony to hide under, doing? Hugging trees? Dying? Sticks and branches shattered against Applejack's armor, dashed against an immovable object by the force of wind. What had happened to Twilight and Rainbow Dash? Rarity could hardly imagine any pony flying through winds like these. How long could Applejack and Rarity survive? Would he eventually succumb to the winds and rain? Or would Titan's spell get them first? How many moments of free will did Rarity have left? "Applejack," Rarity tried to say. The wind stole her words away before they had even left her mouth. She opened her eyes. Applejack looked down at her, the rim of her hat rippling into wind and her mane trying to tear itself off her head. Soot blackened her face. Her freckles fell visible, and even though they were about to die, she still wore an expression of unshakable determination. Applejack's lips moved, but she wasn't shouting. Rarity traced the words, feeling almost the accent in them, as Applejack spoke. She nodded and Rarity moved closer. The wind stopped as the storm passed away quickly as it came, and Rarity pulled herself away and looked into Applejack's eyes. The world wasn't ending just yet. Applejack rolled off of Rarity and they both stood, doing their best to look anywhere but each other. "I repeat, Rarity, and here!" Ying! Rarity sailed for the sky and was rewarded with the sight of Rainbow Dash slipping over the forest to the sound of cheers. Dash touched down in front of Rarity. We did it! She said. We counterspun that storm and sent it straight to our care lot. Am I awesome? Or what? Yes, Rarity said. Awesome. Pinkie Pie came to halt beside them. Well, Dad, you say no lines. Uh-huh, Applejack said. Saved our laughs. Dad sighed Applejack. You look disappointed. Rarity brushed a little dirt out of her mane. Moving on. Dad cocked her head. Twilight's back on the ground. She's rallying every pony up for the final approach. I'm heading the skies. Too many harpies. I'll fly low in case you need me. You guys keep up the charts. Pinkie Pie said, Can I do this one? Without waiting for an answer, she clambered up onto Applejack's back. Ponies! Pinkie Pie shouted. Rarity looked around to see their soldiers again around them, at a respectable distance. They were battered, bruised, and weary-eyed. Their attention was fixated on Pinkie Pie. Pinkie thrust her hoof forward, pointing at the ever-growing citadel. Make war! Ponies make war. And they did. They did because Twilight made them. What else would they do? Is the accident of them? How many lives could she have them throw away before they lost faith? Twilight shed her wings as she reached the edge of the rising storm. The wind made it too difficult to fly. She turned into the air, bringing herself to face downward toward the ever-free forest and the raging battle below. Down, past hundreds of clashing pegasi and harpies, and the burning swath of the ever-free, and tiny figures that fought against them. A flash of lightning, a crash of thunder, and the battlefield was revealed to her in stark contrast. They were losing. That much Twilight could deduce at a glance. The details that led her to her observation followed the conclusion. Their force had become scattered as it pressed on through the woods. Now the army was little more than several disorganized, uneven clumps. They were holding now, but soon they moved out to open ground around the citadel itself. Titan's army of monsters was thick enough that the army would be surrounded and butchered. There was no strategy or coordination to the way they thought. They were simply a mass of predators, instilled with one idea and one idea only: kill ponies. It had made the act of killing them morally suspect at first. These creatures might have been bloodthirsty monsters before Titan, but they never left the forest. Now an army of ponies was coming into their home and slaughtering them. Twilight had felt bad for the monsters. Or, at least, first she had. Her trepidation melted after she watched the manticore impale the unicorn named Quick Fix with his tail. All this seriousness, all this war, all this slicing and dicing and murder and maiming, and there's a pony named Quick Fix. Only a pony fix, people! Only a pony fix. That manticore had been her first kill. Equinox, of course. She had broken through the magical protection Titan had placed on it to find that it hadn't had his mind influence in any way at all. The creatures of Titan's army very much free will, and he wanted to be in the field against ponykind. No mind magic, just what Celestia would call influence. 26 volts of pure magical energy. The 27th made up her halo of defensive maxes, reformed into two equally bright blades beside Twilight as she began to fall through the harpies and her pegasi. Free fall combat had been first strange to Twilight, even when tapping into Rainbow Dash's magic for a slower fall and maneuverability. Soon enough, however, Twilight had grown accustomed to the spatial reasoning required. That was one of her specialties. Too many harpies, not enough pegasi. They were also too scared, too unfocused. All they needed to do was protect the forces on the ground. They should have been flying much slower. There was a certain thrill in flight, and falling that Twilight only barely glimpsing the edges of. Gravity pulled her downward, causing her to fall faster and faster. Air pushed up back at her, a wall of resistant force that tore her mane that would have made her eyes tear. She hadn't protected them with a spell. What would that feel like? To fly just for fun. She killed the thought as abruptly as she killed the first harpy. It was an ugly creature. All scale-like feathers and a twisted mouth, bird-like claws instead of hooves. It hardly even had time to notice Twilight, let alone evade the blades that crossed through its body, and left to fall through the sky in 40 pieces. An intelligent creature. Vicious, yes. Savage, for sure. And now dead. Twilight could kill them in half the time, and twice the effort it took her to sneeze. And she did. Her blade split as she sent them at targets, and Twilight soon fallen past her comparatively slow-moving blade motes. Most of them would miss. The harpies were agile enough to evade them, and they were becoming more aware of Twilight by the second. Some of them would hit. Even the sliver of power inside them was enough to strike her enemies dead. She felt her gaze forward, and found her next target just as it spun in midair to face her. She let a harpy shriek and escape its gruesome mouth. Twilight said nothing and showed no expression, Twilight was moving much faster than a heartbeat, and her collision knocked it senseless for a moment, long enough for Twilight to lock her legs around it. She felt its talons pressing into her back, but it couldn't penetrate the skin hardened by an earth pony and unicorn magic. It was like trying to drive a Nihilus through steel. Twilight drove her forehead into the harpy's face, and burst open like a watermelon. She felt the grip around and relax, and let the harpy fall away. Her blade boats were falling around her now, a swarm of shooting stars that dipped in and wove out the screeching harpies. None of them even tried to kill her. Twilight twisted in the air as she fell forward through another one of the creatures, flipping backwards as she grabbed its neck with its forelegs, snapping as if it was breathing like a twig to her strength. She continued to fall, using her hooves to slay her enemies, but they were nothing compared to her blade motes. Most of their targets had the sense to move out of the way, but none of them had the speed. She felled harpies by the dozens. A Pegasus streaked by Twilight's field of vision. She realized he had fallen far enough to reach the bulk of their own forces. Blade motes wouldn't do, not with ponies grappling the harpies in midair. It was time to change tactics. Her blades formed before her, and Twilight closed her eyes, seeping out with her magical senses. She found the harpies, dozens of them that were close enough, and marked the positions in her mind. She then teleported and stabbed a harpy in the chest, killing it instantly with a surge of magic and freeing the Pegasi he held in his grasp. A Pegasus, a stallion, barely had time to look relieved before Twilight was gone again. The next harpy she sheared in half through the belly. It took her a quarter of a second to kill it, and moved to the next, and the next, and the next. She wedged between her enemies, always falling, but not always falling downward. She tore them apart, stopped their hearts, sliced off their heads, whatever ended the harpy's life as quickly as possible so she could move on. This is how she saved lives. Twilight thought as she cleaved through the shrieking beast by two, by killing and killing again. It took her 10 seconds to clear the air of over 30 of them. She held herself aloft with telekinesis, wrapping her hooves in a steady amethyst light. The Pegasus around her stared at her in awe, an entire wing saved and a flock of harpies dead in seconds. No longer they thought she was a god. "Captain Spitfire?" Twilight said. She knew Spitfire was part of this group as she fell. Perhaps Twilight had even saved her life. Spitfire glided to Twilight, saluted as she began to hover. "General! Rein in our air forces. I want the tightest grip you could possibly maintain over our ground forces as we assault the Citadel. I'm going to draw in troops for a coordinated attack. Understood?" Spitfire nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Ponies make war. She could have asked them all to die, and they would have done it without question. Did he truly think she was infallible? She was just doing the job she was given, like everyone else in this wretched forest. Twilight didn't know which battle cry to use, so she shouted on Rainbow Dashes, "Thunder and lightning!" Every Pegasus, including Spitfire, answered her call. "Wings and steel!" Every piece of morale Twilight could give counted after all. She let the magic fall away from her hooves and fell into a dive. The forest filled her view, closer now than she had been at the edge of the megastorm. She picked her first target well. The ponies were now almost completely overwhelmed. Through the trees, Twilight watched the breaking line of ponies buckle as monster after monster crashed against it. Scorpions tore ponies apart with their pincers. Spiders impaled them with skittering legs. Timberwolves attacked in packs, converging upon fallen prey. And like the ponies they fought, they arranged themselves in a line. Twilight charged each with her blade motes with magical energy and catapulted them toward the ground. They flashed through the air, some of them catching off-guard monsters unawares. But they weren't Twilight's target. Her target was the ground, and she hit. 26 explosive points of magical energy were now embedded just off the pony line. They detonated, just as Twilight pushed herself off into a diagonal fall and slowed her descent. She aimed her motes as close to the pony line as she could without harming her own shoulders. It also meant sparing some of the monsters. The remaining beasts she had to take out personally. She hit the forest floor with one hoof, keeping the momentum from her fall to move herself forward to a thin line of enemies. The first was a manticore, slain by buds of Equinox, as Twilight called it to her side. The second was a Timberwolf, which she stabbed handily. Ponies were just starting to recover from the explosion and take notice of Twilight, a glowing purple blur, racing effortlessly through their lines and killing everything she had touched. This was how Twilight saved lives. She flipped over a scorpion and drove 26 motes of burning energy through its brain. She landed and rolled under a spider's eggs. Then she killed it by recalling Equinox, even as she turned the Timberwolf's head to dust with her hooves. It was not a matter of losing or winning for Twilight. No, life and death were reserved for the soldiers that fought under her. For Twilight, it was a matter of time and efficiency. Because no matter how strong she was, If they couldn't get to the Citadel, ponykind would cease to be. She couldn't kill nearly every creature in Titan's army on her own. Not in the time they had, that was. Twilight bucked some kind of ethereal bear into the darkness of the woods, as Equinox made short work of a plant beast. Titan influenced these monsters into trying to kill them. What had Twilight done with ponykind? She made them fight for her, with words and perceptions. They were dying for their hero, their master general, their new god. The last monster, a cockatrice, fell into quarters as Twilight's blade snapped into position behind her. She cast a spell to clean the blood and ichor from her body, mist in the air around her as her cape settled onto her back. Ponies! Twilight cried, as though every single one of them wasn't already staring at her in awe. I'm one of you, she wanted to shout. Don't look at me like that. There's a swath of hundreds of corpses from here to Ponyville to prove to you I'm not the pony you think I am. Reform your ranks and beat the next division. You need to move counterclockwise to the Citadel. Wait at the edge of the forest for the final attack. Am I understood? Twilight received a faint chorus of assent. Good, she said. I'll be leading the final attack. Until then, she joined a breath. Stay safe. Then she was gone, teleporting to the next cluster of isolated ponies. She landed in the middle of the Citadel forest, very much like the one she had left, except once again surrounded by monsters. Twilight set to work immediately. This had been all accepted and accounted for. She was Astor Corsair, waving through living flesh as easily one might through a cloud of mist. She was Princess Terra, rending her forces apart to protect her own. She was both of them in combat, but neither of them in mind, because she was Princess Celestia, callously thinking to her next move as she executed a single play. She killed them and felt nothing, because she was King Titan, and they were nothing before her. She was anything but Twilight Sparkle. Twilight Sparkle couldn't do this. Maybe she could. Twilight Sparkle was Celestia's Master General and Godslayer. Twilight Sparkle was perfect. She was just trying her hardest to be that mare. To be Twilight Sparkle. Her failure was inevitable. No mare could be in all places at all times, not even her. She ordered an entire group of ponies into form, heedless of how many they already lost. But she also came across battles that had been lost. Too late. Twilight would come out of teleport to find herself surrounded by the fallen, not a living pony soul in sight. Monsters would look up from their meals to find themselves in the presence of Ponykind's newest god. And then, Twilight, and Princess Terra, would punish them for her failure. In the end, the forces she drew together were far more weaker than she hoped to be. They simply suffered too many casualties. In fact, according to Ponies Make War, her army should have lost morale, broken ranks, and fled by now. Was their devotion to Twilight truly so great? Or they'd simply realized that this was their last stand? Twilight came out of a teleport to find herself in the midst of a vanguard. Here at least, they held the line, thanks in part to her friends. A few short seconds and she helped drive them away the last of their monsters. Beaten and battered ponies watched as she expectantly tore through the thinning trees of the Everfree Forest. Again, Twilight found herself detesting the look in their eyes. She could hear them mutter her name, whispering between another about the appearance of their savior. Twilight set her soldiers and took a deep breath. It was time to stop wallowing in her identity crisis and focus on a task at hoof, securing the Citadel. The rest of the army is converging on our position, Twilight said. When they get here, we're forming new ranks and assaulting the Citadel as a whole. Titan has a whole new army up there. This is the last chance any of you will get to rest. Twilight reasoned they could be ready in less than 5 minutes. It was a good thing, too. The spell was nearing its completion. She could feel it. She strode over to her friends. Rainbow Dash sported enormous cuts and scrapes, what appeared to be a new pair of goggles. Pinkie Pie's leg was still wrapped up, and held it apart from the ground. At least now she seemed to be happier. Twilight wondered what caused her change in attitude. First glance, Rarity seemed to be okay, but Twilight soon realized her breathing was labored. Once more she kept visiting, as though she was nervous about something. The end of the world, and Rarity was worrying. Elzak was perfectly healthy, and her armor was barely scratched. She was perfectly healthy until she died. Twilight took them all over, trying to figure out what she could possibly say. What words could fully encapsulate the way she felt about the 4 mares in front of her? How could she express her worry, her gratitude, guilt, and her need? She almost felt silly, wearing her uniform in them. Twilight Sparkle wasn't their god. To them, Twilight Sparkle was a friend, a librarian, a bit of a dork. Thank you, she said. Appleshack cocked her head. What for? For looking at me the way you do. Twilight turned her head to face the ponies of the army. They look at me like they've always looked at Celestia. To them I'm perfect,
an idea. No matter how hard I try to be the pony they think I am, to deserve the way they treat me, I fail. Ponies die, just like the labyrinth. A pause. You're welcome, Applejack said. Twilight eyed her friend, wondering just how the hat still existed. Right, she said. The final approach. We're in front. Dash scoffed. Obviously. We do this together, Twilight said. If experience has taught us anything, it's that running off on my own is almost always the worst possible plan. Pinkie Pie snickered. If Rainbow Dash and Applejack exchanged a look. We were wondering when you'll go to read eyes, not dear, Rarity said. Then you can stop dying, Pinkie Pie said. Thanks. Twilight turned to look at the armory. I'm going to go get everything organized. She thought about teleporting. It was such a walk. They had the time. A short while later, Twilight stood again before the army of ponykind, ready to lead them against the past tree line into the final push. The citadel stood before her, towering over the trees of the forest, now racing up into our cloudless sky. Ponies! Twilight said. This is the end! This is how we take back our world! One final push is all that remains! Now they know it. You've seen them fight now. They're bigger than we are. Stronger! No stronger than you! A voice shouted. Godslayer! Godslayer! Twilight waited for these tears to die down. Not stronger than us, she said finally. Because when we fight a legion of individuals, we fight them as one. They are a swarm of 1,000 nightmares. But we are the wrath of an entire species. Ponies! She shouted. This is our final hour. Stand with one another. Fight for each other. Act in harmony. For that is our one true strength. She cast Equinox and turned around, coming face to face with her friends. She raised her blade, preparing to signal the shards. And you don't think you deserve their loyalty? Death said quietly. Twilight called the lightning from a clear sky, and a thunderbolt crashed its way through the air to strike Equinox. She felt her blade drinking the energy and seethed with elemental might. She didn't know she could do that. She just called lightning for dramatic effect. She had to remember to keep that particular one in mind. Her host hit the ground, taking past her friends and out into the front of the invading army. She didn't need to look to know that they followed her. Her friends, the army, everyone. The underbrush grew sparse, and trees thin. Ahead, Twilight could see it and broke into the citadel clearing. Nearly an hour before, Titan had raised the ancient device from the earth, shattering the plateau and tearing the forest apart. Then, he seemingly blown away by the debris, flattening the trees too close to the blast. The result was a pit, a massive impressing in the earth around the citadel, deeper than the rest of the forest by only a few meters. The scattered fragments of the plateau littered the dirty ground, pushed into the earth by Titan's magic. Some were as small as pieces of gravel, others were as big as a barn. Together they formed a surface to stand on instead of the uneven earth. Twilight looked at their approach and gritted her teeth. It was filled with Titan's damnable monsters, teeming with them. Thousands of skittering horrors and nightmarish creatures just swarmed within the pit, shrieking and chittering at the meager armies of ponykind. There were just so many of them, and more were coming. Hundreds crawling out to the far edges of the ever-free forest. Thousands compared to hundreds. They all crammed within the last couple of kilometers of distance to Harmony Citadel. And they're vastly outnumbered, but beings far superior in combat than them. But it wasn't fair. But then, nothing about Titan or the war had ever been. Twilight Sparkle's hose pressed into the diminishing grass as she ran, beating the dirt as she moved to meet their enemies. She felt the tremor of 100 ponies following her behind with each step. The air was so fresh here. It smelled faintly of pine needles. It almost felt deceptive. Twilight opened her mouth as she reached the edge of the pit and screamed. She split Equinox, divided her mind into two. One went over the vast amount of war spells she could employ. The other called upon other magics. Each of them took a blade. She reached the edge of the pit and jumped. For the instant, she felt like she was frozen in the air for a moment. She was in the air, cloaked billowing, bearing down on Titan's army, her 4 friends falling beside her. Had it really only been 2 months? 1 month even for Twilight. They had gone from being a group of towns-ponies to being Ponykind's iconic heroes. They were weapons of war now, each of them nigh invulnerable and deadly. The monsters of the Everfree looked up, their multifaceted eyes in empty pits, expecting mortal ponies for devouring. They got Twilight Sparkle instead. Her host touched the ground even as the twin blades of Equinox found as she slew 2 targets. She spun and leapt over the falling corpse of a scorpion, wind roaring in her ears. She split her blade and sent it in the mass of her enemies. Every monster she failed to kill was picked up by her friends. Rarity took the legs off of a spire. then handily dispatched it with Vorpal. Hoof-blade rolled by Twilight, a flash of steel in the moonlight, and took another spire in her eyes. Rainbow Dash was beside Twilight in an instant, covering her left with an absurdly sharp blade, moving faster than Twilight could follow. Applejack batted a pack of timberwolves out of the air, grunting as he split her wooden bodies with her armored hooves. The ponies were spilling out over the edge and onto the battlefield, roaring with the wrath of ponykind. Unicorns flung shards of steel and any projectiles they could get their hooves on with a devastating opening salvo. Earth ponies rushed in to crush their opponents, to deal death, or skewer them with makeshift weapons that they held in their teeth. Above them, a wave of Pegasi clashed with Titan's harpies, and the dead left to fall and break upon the ground. They pushed forward. Twilight found it too easy to become lost in the chaos. This was not the forest, where their enemies were spread thin, only to come out a few at a time. They pressed in around her. The air became thick with blood and ichor. She was frantic, throwing blade motes to intercept the monsters as they threatened to strike killing blows on our troops. Twilight tried to get an idea of how far they still had to go as she burst into creatures of ever free. They needed to break the enemy's morale in order to win. There was no way she could kill them all. But what would terrify Titan's army into retreat, when it was obviously at superior numbers? They fought on. No matter how many she killed, they mortally replaced them. Twilight began to feel herself panicking every time she came to face the army. Flashes of her soldiers dying lived in her mind long after she turned away. She watched the nerve pony have its belly torn open by a pack of timberwolves. She saw them fight over his insides. She saw a unicorn split almost in two by a massive scorpion stinger. A spire pinned one of her ponies to the ground, punched a hole in their chest with its front legs. It did it again and again, until Twilight destroyed it with a flick of her blade. Twilight allowed herself only a moment to look down at the mare. She wanted to say she was sorry, that she couldn't save them all, but the mare was already dead. Eyes filmed over as blood leaked from her mutilated wounds into a pool around her. This was where Twilight was supposed to get angry, she knew. She ought to have turned around and attacked Titan's army with redoubled efforts. Instead, she felt almost numbed as she ripped into the pack with enemy ranks. There was no way she could overcome these numbers. She led them into a death trap. Worst part was, she would do it again, given a chance. Lying down submitting to Titan was just not an option for her or ponykind. They had to fight, no matter how great their cause. They were only mortal. Twilight knew she couldn't give in to despair. Luna had shown her as much. Even if they were hopelessly outnumbered, even if she couldn't bear to see another pony's dead eyes, she couldn't give up. They would win. They had to. That was when she heard it, or rather felt it. The sound came to them from the ground. A deep, faint rumble that was like two boulders being ground together. Twilight better had time to wonder what it was before leaping back into the sky. Soon, however, the sound came again, much louder than it had before. This time Twilight recognized what it was. A roar. Every creature in Titan's army stopped, began to bake away from the broken plain. Twilight watched the retreat with awe. "Stop!" she ordered her army. "Hold!" She needed to know what was going on before she ordered them back into combat. She had a feeling it wasn't good. Thump! A wave of sound hit her, like the beating of an impossibly large drum. The roar began again. Thump! That was when Twilight saw the missing stars. An entire piece of the sky was gone. Or rather, something was blocking it from view. Thump! Something enormous and perfectly black. "Dragon," Twilight whispered. "That's Exhaustus." Thump! The roar he let out was now deafening. Ponies covered their ears. Thump! "But that will mine." Thump! "Fluttershy." Thump! The force of his wing beats stirred the manes of the airs. His form began to take shape against the night sky. She didn't make it. Thump! Rarity moved to stand beside Twilight. Mouth a racing line as he looked up at the approaching dragon. "Twilight," she said, eyes brimming with tears. "If I make you a knight, will you kill him for me?" Thump! As it stretched his wings wide to glide toward their position. He was massive, as big as the great hall of Canterlot Castle. Twilight didn't even know if she could fight that. His fighter could probably kill her in one go if she wasn't careful. Had she killed Fluttershy? Or had Fluttershy even made it to his lair? Did she wander through the dark of the forest and fall prey to another monster? Was she afraid in her final moments? Had been quick and painless? Twilight let her go. The first of her friends to die for Ponykind's savior. She had a feeling Fluttershy wouldn't be the last. Would Twilight watch them all die here, tonight? Would she slowly be stripped of her own powers and friends, until at last she was nothing but a scared little unicorn, alone in a field of corpses? Twilight couldn't face that eventuality. She had to die insane, A familiar, five-note tune sung out towards Everfree. Twilight had never been so glad to hear anything as much as Fluttershy's song. She didn't realize she couldn't lose them. Not any of them. They were her whole entire reason for fighting. Her only measure of sanity in an insane world. And if they went, Twilight would go with them. It didn't matter if she had to wade through courses of gods and nightmares to do it. Twilight would make sure her friends were safe. Exhaustus roared. It was followed again by the closing notes of Fluttershy's song. It was Fluttershy's voice, yes, but it was different somehow. It carried with it an eerie echo. A shadow itself carried the sound far and wide. Suddenly, Twilight felt herself remembering what it was like to feel green grass under her hooves on a clear summer day. The cool scent of Carousel Boutique, coupled with the soft sound of fabric and little hum from Rarity. The cloying sweet taste of one of Pinkie Pie's cupcakes on her tongue. Exhaustus came low, swooping in over Titan's army and creating a gale of wind between the ground and his enormous wings. He opened his mouth wide. It sounded like a hissing mountain filled the air. Twilight thought that he could make out a small form riding his neck. Yellow and pink jump into the air. Fluttershy. Exhaustus's fire was almost like an absence of light, blossomed forth from a jagged maw like a spreading pool of ink, overtaking and everything on the ground beneath him. He beat his wings, pushing himself forward and carrying on his massive form over Titan's army. He landed between Twilight and the Citadel at the center of the legion of monsters, and crushed dozens beneath his ancient claws. The sweep of his tail killed half of 100 as he began to inhale again with a grinding hiss. Fluttershy sang her 5 notes, and a warmth of feelings washed over Twilight once again. The sound of a bunny happily munching on a carrot. Rainbow Dash ruffling her mane and wearing a cocksure grin. Applejack tossing her an apple she had polished on her saddlebag.
Oh, my.
You feel better?
Oh, yes.
Twilight didn't know how, but Fluttershy was calming the entire army in the face of the dragon any pony had ever seen. Exhaustus was on their side. There was no need to worry. Everything was going to be all right. Titan's armies ran, screeching and wailing, away from Exhaustus as he released another gout of pitch black flame. They clambered past the Citadel, out towards the side of the depressed battlefield, and the ones that had been caught between Exhaustus and the army ran toward Twilight. They rather faced the army of ponykind than Exhaustus the Black. Twilight couldn't blame them. She watched the dragon's fire recede, leaving only a cloud of ash in its wake. Could even she fight something like that? The fleeing monsters were practically charging now, multitudes of legs carrying them across the broken plain toward the ponies. It was a frantic thing, the desperate attack of a creature backed into their corner. Whereas before they fought to kill, now they would fight to survive. Fluttershy glided through the air, held her wings stiff, and landed beside Twilight. All of them ceased staring at Exhaustus, started staring at Fluttershy. Do you people see why I kind of get miffed whenever we overdo it on the Fluttershy scared thing? Do you guys see why I lose my temper? It's because of this Vic. This Vic, I think, has corrupted me! Thin, vivid green vines wound their way up her legs and around her body, perfectly symmetrical. Here and there, a strangely shaped pair of leaves adorned her form. They made her look almost feral, like some kind of primal warrior delivered to Razor's wrath. Atop her head sat an ever-growing, ever-shifting crown, held to her head by thorns driven into her skin. Several trickles of blood ran down from the crown-red flesh. What was it that Terra had been called? The Princess of the Forest? Her mane billowed about as he licked her face, a soft pink aura encasing a hard expression. Fluttershy, Twilight said. You look terrifying, Rarity said. Fluttershy looked at each other in turn. A tiny hint of a smile graced her stony features. She turned to the charging creatures.
They'll kill each other,
she said, her voice accompanied by a thrum of power. Twilight recognized it immediately. It was the same voice Alicorn used.
It's their way,
Fluttershy continued.
They fight and kill and die for food, for territory, for sex. Each of them can live in our world, but they don't. This is what they are. It's what they want to be.
The sound of their enemy's steps came closer and closer, but nothing could draw out the melody that was Fluttershy's voice.
As the spider snares the fly, and the lizard eats the spider, they kill and die. It's their way.
Fluttershy looked back, past Twilight who knew where Twilight knew the mutilated corpses that are fallen.
And for a single night,
she said softly, turning back to the charging army.
It's my way too.
Everybody, settle up. Next chapter is the big one.
We're going for the final battle! Twilight Sparkle versus Titan! Place your bets!